Hey, it's Mitch here again with the 1925 Ford Model T. So a little something different in this video. I've just teamed up with Peter G. Mozzone, who some of you guys may know on Facebook, and if you happen to live in downtown Taunton, Massachusetts, you would know him as Pete on the Street on your local TV cable shows. So in this video, Peter actually interviewed me recently about my Model T and my lifestyle here in Australia, which you guys may be familiar with if you've been following me on my channel. So sit back, buckle up, and enjoy the ride.
Hey ladies and germs, this is Pete on the Street, alive for now, and I'm heading down to the TCAM studio to see what I can put together for a new show for you guys. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but we'll see what happens. And hello? Yeah, hi, hello? Oh, hey, yeah, Mitch, how you doing? Hold on. Hey, it's my friend Mitch Taylor from New South Wales, Australia. He's one of my Model T guys.
Greetings and welcome to Pete on the Street. For the next 30 minutes, we'll share with you a collection of on-location and in-studio interviews that prove that everyone's got a story. Join us on the Dead Tour to visit the graves of the famous or obscure and hear a biography of what they did while among the living. Please join us in saying thank you for your service to our veterans and active duty military, police, and firefighters. And join Pete on location on Cape Cod as well as elsewhere in New England, Hawaii, Ireland, and Italy, and who knows where else. Be sure to stay tuned for in-studio guests joining Pete for conversations regarding local and regional issues of importance to our community. You'll never know who you meet with Pete on the Street. This program is also seen on the Rainham, Middleborough, Lakeville, Fall River, Easton, West Bridgewater, Sandwich, and Provincetown cable networks, and also online at facebook.com/pgmozzone. And here's the host of our show, Peter G. Pete on the Street, Mozzone.
Hey, it's my friend Mitch Taylor from New South Wales, Australia. He's one of my Model T guys. Hey, Mitch, listen, I'm glad you called me because, hey, I remember we hooked up on Facebook because I had a Model T at the time. You've got a beautiful Model T. Hey, what got you so interested in the American Model T Ford? Oh, what's that?
What attracted me to antique cars in America, particularly the Model T Ford, was the fact that when I was a young lad living in Albany in Western Australia, at the time there was a antique car museum in Albany at the time, and a very well-known gentleman by the name of Paul Terry owned the museum. And at the time, the equally famous vintage car Genevieve was on display there. You might have seen the 1953 movie Genevieve, which basically follows a small 1904 Darracq and a 1904 Spiker on the London to Brighton run, and this was filmed in 1953. And that particular car, the 1904 Darracq Genevieve, was actually on display in Albany, West Australia, up until, sadly, when Paul Terry passed away, unfortunately, and his entire vintage car collection was sold off. There was a happy ending to that story, though. The Genevieve actually went back to England and continued to participate in the London to Brighton classic car run. And I believe the car actually resides back in its home of France now.
Hey Mitch, hey, were there ever any Model T Fords built in Australia? Or were they all built in the United States and shipped out? What's the story with that?
So yes, some Model Ts were actually built in Australia. The majority of them that were built here were actually built down in Melbourne, in the suburb of Geelong specifically. Hence you might actually hear about the term a Geelong-bodied Model T. What they actually did was they actually shipped out the Canadian-built chassis with the engine and running gear on it, shipped those out to Australia, just the bare basics, and then coach builders down in Geelong put the bodies on them. So there is actually a noticeable difference between the US-built Model Ts and the Australian bodied Model Ts, because they didn't actually build the chassis and the engines and that here. They actually built those in Canada for the Australian version. Of course, the Australian version is right-hand drive, and those that come from the US are left-hand drive. So yes, they did build a few here in Australia as well.
Hey, that's cool. Hey, Mitch, did you buy your Model T Ford from somebody in Australia, or did you buy it in the United States and have it shipped over? What's the story on that?
My Model T actually came from Ann Arbor in Michigan. It was actually built at Henry Ford's infamous Highland Park plant. I did actually look at buying a Model T here in Australia first, but back in 2011 when I actually bought my Model T, the cheapest that I could find, or the one that was most well within my budget at the time, was about 50,000 Australian dollars, which at the time was roughly the same in US dollars. And of course that was out of my price bracket, so I decided I'd have a look and try and find one elsewhere and look further abroad. So I decided to have a look in the US, of course, and that was where I found my Model T. To get it to Australia was quite an in-depth process. Mostly, I didn't actually take care of most of that myself. I actually had a freight handling company, Australia-based, but they also had a branch in Los Angeles. Excuse me, handle it for me. Basically, what happened was I contacted the guys in Sydney, where they actually had their Australian base, and had them liaise with the guys in America to organise the shipping. So my Model T actually started its journey from Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I bought it from, and went in a covered truck all the way across the US, across to Los Angeles, where it was then put in a shipping container and then sent across to Australia. And the funny thing is, it actually cost me almost as much in freight and taxes when it came into Australia. All those costs combined was almost as much as I paid for the car at the time. But if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have any problems doing it. It was quite an interesting process. It's not something I've done before. Since then, I've imported a Fordson tractor into Australia as well. But no, it all stemmed, and I actually have to thank my father for this, because he's been in the import-export industry for quite a number of years, and he helped me out bringing the car into Australia. So yeah, it's been quite an adventure so far.
Mitch, you do some great videos. You just did one of a Fordson tractor. Hey, maybe I could use that video on my show sometime?
Yes, recently I actually imported a 1919 Fordson Model F tractor into Australia, and this time the tractor actually came from the UK. However, it was actually an American-built tractor, so it's kind of been all over the world, really. It started life, of course, in the States where it was built, and then it was shipped across to the UK, I imagine, during the war, so it would have been, I would imagine, provided as part of the war effort to the British farmers to try and help speed up production of food and things like that. So I don't actually know much about the tractor's history, but what I do know is that it led quite a busy life in the UK. When I purchased it, actually somebody had rather foolishly left the water in the engine during the winter, and I presumably without any antifreeze in it. And what happened, of course, during that winter, that it was obviously quite a cold snap that winter, and the water froze and popped a big hole in the side of the engine block, which, as we speak, actually is being repaired. So yeah, no, it's been quite a successful restoration so far. We've had the engine running for the first time in quite a few decades, I believe it is, and yeah, so the restoration is well underway. No doubt you'll get to see that on YouTube when it's all done.
Yeah, hey, so Mitch, I see you're the owner of a business called Discount Tractors. What's going on with Discount Tractors? Do you have a big market for those over in Australia?
Well, obviously, all of my hobbies, they come at a cost, of course. And I actually work with my family, particularly my father and my wife. We actually run a small family business. We sell agricultural machinery, so tractors and implements and things like that. So, and how that all came about, I think, well, my father he was brought up on a farm, and he spent a lot of his youth, driving tractors and things like that, and generally getting up to mischief as teenagers tend to do when they live on a farm. I think anything from I think he said he had a Ford Consul when he was in his mid-teens or so, and he actually cut it in half and made it into a pickup truck, which one might yeah. I don't know how successful that was. He ended up having to make the chassis out of lengths of timber because the car sagged in the middle. But in terms of the business, no, it's been quite successful thus far. And as I say, we sell tractors and implements and things like that. And my role in the business is primarily with the IT side of things. So I built our company's website from the ground up. We've got a full-time mechanic working for us, and yeah, it definitely pays the bills. It has to be said, and it has allowed me to pursue my hobby, which of course is vintage cars and machinery like that. Some might say I'm a bit mad doing such a thing at my age. Some say, oh, it's a retiree's hobby and that, but I don't know. It gives me pleasure. I've always been interested in older machinery and cars and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so Mitch, if you've got a tractor business and you must be pretty mechanical, does that help you with your hobby of working on your Model T Ford?
So yeah, the business has, I suppose, been a little bit instrumental in helping me with my restoration and my vintage hobby. In so much as that we've got a full-time mechanic working for us, and he's actually been really, really good helping with one or two mechanical questions that I've had. A couple of things that I wasn't too sure of, including a recent video actually which has gone up on YouTube, and that's how to replace the head gasket on the Model T Ford. He gave me a few pointers on the sorts of things to look out for, and what sorts of things to do, and to do it properly. So I suppose, yeah, in a sense, yes, the business has been instrumental in helping me with the hobby.
Yeah, so Mitch, hey, I realize you got married not that long ago. Did you use the Model T during the wedding?
Yes, my Model T was in fact used at my wedding to my wife Shay back in 2015. I've got to say it was definitely a day to remember, not just because of the having the old cars and that at the wedding, but of course the day itself was fantastic. We had fantastic weather, and our celebrant was absolutely lovely. She did a very good job, and she made the day very special for Shay and myself. In terms of the car, as I say, yes, it was used at the wedding. I drove myself and my best man to the wedding. Shay actually she rode to the wedding in a 1929 Chrysler 75, beautiful car, also owned by a local car enthusiast here in Taree. We also had a 1913 Rover Torpedo there, 12 horsepower, a very nice car indeed. And we also had a 1937 MG SA, which carried some of the bridesmaids and the flower girl. And lastly, we also had a 1968 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, which carried some of the bridesmaids as well. And yet, for sure, if you'd like to see the pictures, then by all means, I'd love to share those, and I think my wife would be pleased to share them too.
So Mitch, your lovely wife Shay, now is she as involved with the hobby as you are? Does she like the Model T and going to shows and things?
My wife, yeah, she does. She does enjoy the Model T and the tractor as well. Although the tractor obviously is not actually in full running condition yet. But no, in terms of the Model T, she does enjoy coming out for a ride in it. And she comes to car shows with me when I go to those. I think perhaps sometimes she thinks I might get a little bit carried away with my hobby, and yeah, I think she's probably right on that score. But no, she's very supportive. My wife Shay, she's a lovely lady, and I feel very privileged to be married to her, and more so to be, I suppose, to be married to somebody who's actually takes an interest in a motoring related hobby. I think it's fair to say there's, to find a woman that's interested in that sort of thing, that's a very special kind of woman. They don't seem to come up too often. So yeah. So the short answer to my question is yes. Shay does take an interest in my hobby, and she's very supportive, which I'm very, very grateful for.
So Mitch, right now we're in the middle of summer. It's up here we're in the northern hemisphere. You're way down in the land down under. What's it like having Christmas in the middle of a summer? I bet you never get a white Christmas.
Yeah, having Christmas in Australia or down under during the summertime, of course, it's different to what I was used to, because I was actually born in England, and not many people are actually aware of that one. Although you might be able to pick it up in my voice occasionally. As I say, yeah, born in England, and we obviously had snow during the winter time and at Christmas time on occasion there. Although we actually moved out to Australia when I was 6 years old, so realistically the only memories I really have of the UK were on videos and that. I have, of course, been back to England several times since then, but no, it's quite, as I say, it is different here having Christmas time in the summertime, and with most people, in the northern hemisphere might go out sledding or whatever and go and have fun in the snow, building snowmans and what have you. But here it's more of a case of, go outside, have a barbecue, have a barbecue lunch, that sort of thing, and then maybe spend the afternoon in the swimming pool for the afternoon. So it's completely different to what you guys would be used to in the US. But yeah, I enjoy it, and I love living here. It's certainly a lot warmer than England from what I can remember, and yeah.
I've always been fascinated with the southern hemisphere and the so-called land down under down in Australia. Now I understand, do whirlpools, like when you're draining a sink, it goes in the opposite direction of it does up here in the northern hemisphere? Tell me a little bit about Australia, my buddy.
Here in New South Wales, and parts of New South Wales I should say, we do get snow on occasion. Actually about 80 kilometres away from where I live, we actually get snow at a place called Barrington Tops. It's just a small mountain range not far from where I live, and during the winter time it's not uncommon to see snow up there, or at least snow-capped peaks, I should say. We don't get heavy snowfalls up there generally, but the most famous locations in New South Wales for snow would be the Blue Mountains, which are west of Sydney, and they have the ski fields up down that way, and skiing, particularly during the winter, is very popular down that way. And then you've got Mount Kosciuszko National Park, which is absolutely beautiful during the winter. Represents some of Australia's coldest locations, actually. Mount Kosciuszko, or more particularly Charlotte Pass, which is not far from there, has seen Australia's coldest recorded temperatures, which are below zero. So yes, we do get snow in New South Wales.
Hey, now, Mitch, one of my favorite songs is called what the heck's the name of it? I'm having a brain cramp here. It's the Southern Cross. Southern Cross. It was written by Stephen Stills, done by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Jimmy Buffett does a great cover of it. What's the story with the Southern Cross? Is that a star constellation that you can only see from the southern hemisphere?
Yes, the Southern Cross is a star constellation. It is only visible in the southern hemisphere. It actually forms part of the Australian flag, quite prominently, as a matter of fact. But yes, it is only visible in the southern hemisphere, and it varies where it appears in the sky from depending on what time of year. But it is an easily recognisable constellation nonetheless.
Mitch, do you ever have any interest, or I know you've traveled to China. You travel a lot with your business, but do you ever have any plans to come to the United States and visit the old Mozzone? You're always welcome.
Yes, I have been to the United States once. That was back in 2005. My father and myself flew over there for a business seminar in Orlando, Florida. So Florida is actually the only state I have visited this far. So while we were there, as I say, we had the business seminar that we had to attend, and then we had time for a bit of sightseeing after that, and we actually went for a ride out to the Kennedy Space Center. And I've got to say, it was quite an eye-opener to see the rockets up close and the enormous things that they are. And to check out the space shuttle launching site and the vehicle assembly building and many other things besides. Of course, Australia doesn't have very much of a space program in comparison to the US, which of course is the home of NASA. We also visited the Titanic Exhibition, which was open at the time, which was basically is a guided tour of the Titanic disaster and what happened and how it sunk, and there's quite a number of interactive displays and even period dressed actors. Would you believe it was quite an interesting experience. So yes, as I have been to the US once, back in 2005. Thoroughly enjoyed it. As I say, only got to visit Orlando, Florida at the time. I would like to return to the US again at some point, in particular to visit the Henry Ford Museum. That would be probably pretty high on my list of holidays I'd like to take, or should I say vacations at some point. So yes.
So here's the 1925 Model T runabout I owned. I owned it from 2000 till 2017. Had a lot of fun. Oh, sweet baby. Oh, baby cage. Second gear.
Hey, Peter, that's good right there. You look good in there.
Oh yeah, huh? Hey, I'm cruising in style.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, that's an option. It's got the ice cream doll. Nice. Oh, and I finally put that muffler back on this afternoon. Yeah, the muffler blew off it last time. Last time I had it out. There it is. We're good to go.
Nice and straight.
Do you think I'm green? Oh, my wild days are over. My wild days are over. I know that they're all over now. When all is said and done, the The preacher made us one, but I found out that she's a one, and one from one leaves none. My wifey has a mother who is just as wild as she. When wifey's tired fighting, say her mother starts on me. They say that I'm the boss, but I have no authority. So my wild days are all over now.
Well, hey, listen, Mitch, I'm so glad you called me. I'm glad we connected, and I don't think I have to go to the studio now. I think I've got enough for a great show, and I really appreciate it. And what I always say is it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Ha ha! We'll catch you later. Oh, let's see if this old thing starts again. Whoa. Whoa! Looks like I better rewire my horn.
Thank you for watching Pete on the Street. This program is produced by Peter G. Pete on the Street Mozzone, who is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed here are solely those of Mr. Mozzone and his guests, and do not reflect the views and opinions of TCAM TV, Taunton Community Access and Media Inc., its directors or management. For comments and suggestions, reach out to Pete on the Street at peter.mozzone@verizon.net, or like us on Facebook at facebook.com/pgmozzone. Production coordinator is Walter Sabina. I'm Alicia Koulis, director of Pete on the Street. Your producer and host is Peter G. Pete on the Street Mozzone, who thanks TCAM TV and his guests for the opportunity to make this show possible.
So there you have it, guys. That was the interview with Peter G. Mozzone and myself on Pete on the Street, and that was aired on local cable television in Taunton, Massachusetts. Once again, and as always, guys, thank you very, very much for watching my videos. Can't wait to see you guys again. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the next video. Catch you later, guys.